I'm a scientist, and I did an experiment on myself by getting drunk. And I want to talk to you about what I put my body through. There's this old wives' tale that drinking sugary alcoholic drinks gives you a worse hangover. And it's also been thrown around that eating while you drink makes your hangover less severe. To my eye, these two things seem to contradict each other. Sugar, more specifically sucrose like sugar and fructose in fruits, are carbohydrates, and they're a useful form of energy. While it seems to me like sugar would help you when drinking ethanol, let's see what the literature says. First off, alcohols are any molecule that has an oxygen and a hydrogen group stuck together, like methanol, ethanol, propanol, and butanol. These types of alcohol have 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons in them, respectively. But the one that I'm talking about today, the one that's in beer and wine and vodka, and the one that makes you feel good and lifts your mood in the short term, is ethanol. It's the same molecule that's in Goon that's in Hennessy, and that's what drinkers are looking for to get a buzz. Ethanol in small quantities damages the cells, increases your risk of cancer, including breast cancer, and in large enough quantities can kill you. So by definition, it's a poison. It's processed by an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase to form acetyl alcohol, which is toxic. This is then broken further down by aldehyde dehydrogenase. Some people have a gene mutation, which is particularly common in Asians, which means they have low levels of aldehyde dehydrogenase, which means that the toxic aldehyde builds up in their body and is not processed, causing them to flush. Now, we know that alcohol is broken down. How can we tell how it gives us a hangover? Like the hangover I had this morning, I had anxiety. Ethanol causes dopamine levels to rise, which through a series of events makes you feel good, but after a while, dopamine levels drop below the level that they were at before you started to drink. And that slump is where the anxiety comes over. Now, I'm happy to pass the baton over to the beer boys. A paper used by Fierce, Torres, and Miranda, Ruiz, and Ortega found that alcohol increases blood testosterone concentration in women and lowered testosterone concentration in men. When you drink alcohol, you're also drinking other things. Different drinks taste different because of the different chemicals producing different flavor profiles. But can the other things in the alcoholic beverages reduce or worsen a hangover? In a 2009 study by Andrew Mitchison, subjects were given a measured dose of either caffeine-free cola, bourbon, or vodka. Bourbon is darker in part because it has a higher amount of conjugates, and the author wanted to know if more conjugates made the hangover worse. The conjugates did not affect the subject's sleep, although ethanol did, with everyone who drank having a much poorer sleep than those who didn't drink alcohol. The subjects who drank the bourbon did have worse hangovers. A 2014 study found that mixing alcohol and caffeine does not make your hangover worse. However, in a study, subjects drank until they had a blood alcohol content of 0.12%. In the wild, you might not stop drinking until at 0.12%. And caffeine makes you feel less drunk and more prone to buying more drinks, worsening your hangover. But what about sugar? In a 1976 study, 30 male volunteers were given 1.5 grams of ethanol per kilogram of body weight. Some of them were given glucose or fructose while drinking, and some were not. Of those that did not get any sugar while drinking, some were given glucose or fructose the following morning. The subjects were asked to rate their subjective hangover experience, and the reaction times and coordination were objectively tested. Those who had sugar and alcohol at the same time had better reaction times but worse coordination than those who had only ethanol. The subject size, there was only 30 people. This is a small study, so you can't generalize from 30 adults what's going to happen to everyone. In another very similar study from 1976, published in the European Journal of Clinical Investigation, 109 volunteers were used as guinea pigs. This study found Neither fructose or glucose had any scientifically significant effect on the intensity of alcohol intoxication or hangover. No effect on the rate of ethanol elimination, although, unsurprisingly, blood glucose concentrations were lower and blood was more acidic in the group that drank without sugar. I speculate that the reason this myth exists is that it's much easier to drink sugary drinks than just beer or dry wine. Thus, if one is drinking sugary mixed drinks, one might drink more than they otherwise would, and that would cause a more severe hangover. And this may not come as a surprise to many of you, but according to Examine, drinking alcohol after meals reduces peak blood alcohol levels, regardless of nutrient composition, due to food delaying the time it takes for your stomach to empty, which holds alcohol in your stomach, where it is absorbed slower than it is further down the line in the duodenum. In English, that means you'll get f***ed up more quickly if you don't eat. So what did we learn? Alcohol is harmful but fun. And basically, the myth that sugary drinks exacerbate hangovers may be grounded in the ease with which one can drink sugary drinks, potentially leading to greater alcohol intake and consequently a more severe hangover.